It is actually quite rare for me to be able to review a full campaign, especially with a game that has so much content in it, but sometimes my wife and I chance upon something that stands out to us so much that we commit to it and play it through. This was the case for ISS Vanguard. Welcome to Tabletop Goodness and my, well, spoiler-free, hopefully, review of Awaken Realms ISS Vanguard and its whole base campaign. We roughly played this over the course of 3 months, playing 1 session per evening with roughly 20 to 25 sessions in total. It's important to say that we played this as 2 characters each, meaning we had some management overhead but also less downtime. Plus, the game is kinda respectful to your time, as it will let you know if there's a longer segment coming up in advance, and at least for us, the time it took to complete a full play session was fairly consistent. Well, let's get into it. First, let's talk rules. I mean, we're used to hundreds of pages of rules in the meantime, and I guess once you're at that point, you just accept that this is how you will live your life. But one thing that surely did stand out was the tutorial, which was guided by a tutorial deck and made it actually quite easy to get started. Once we got into the thick of it, we did have to check up on some rulings, post some BGG, kind of the usual stuff for games of that size. But for most of the time, things went smoothly. We also made use of the accompanying app, which we at first feared would take us out of the immersion, but found that quite the opposite was the case. Some technical hiccups aside, this was smooth as butter. And the game itself is divided into 2 parts: ship management and planetary exploration, both equally important to the game mechanics. Ship management is all about running your research projects, upgrading your crew, hiring new crew members, or treating the wounded, whereas planetary exploration is where you actually chart a course through space and find a planet to land on and play your actual mission. At the beginning of the game, especially ship management felt a bit clunky, but as we got more and more experienced, this quickly became a non-issue. Planetary exploration, on the other hand, boy. We were very, very happy with how things worked. Mind you, this is a very complex game, and you might end up in a situation where you need to make a judgment call, but those never felt wrong or artificial to us. Next up, story. There is a very nice overarching theme and story to all the exploration, and we oftentimes discussed after the game session as to how things might continue. The story itself will not win any Oscars or any of that sort, but it's really actually quite good. We've had absolute highlights in some of the story missions that we played, things that we do talk about till today, as well as absolutely soul-crushing events happening, which should just tell you about how invested we were in this game. And it was not even our main genre, which is RPGs and dungeon crawlers, but somehow Awaken Realms managed to make space exploration super appealing to us. Some of the missions were so incredibly unique that it at times felt like you're playing a whole different game. ISS Vanguard really took cues from many different genres and learned from Awaken Realms' predecessors. And as you learn more about the setting of the game and explore the corners of the galaxy, you will have to make difficult decisions that will affect the remainder of the campaign. Some of these decisions feel bigger than others, and some have bigger effects than others, but all of them had a choice that, well, more or less resonated with us. Having played it only once, I think that the main storyline is rather set. But your choices do add to that, and it feels like it's your story that you're playing. Maybe there's somewhere that you can't go or something that you can't do if you did not make a choice that leads up to that, or maybe there's a character you meet again later on because you managed to save them. It's also fairly non-linear, as in the order in which you visit planets is not dictated by the game at all. We always felt like we had a lot of choice, at times almost too much choice. This is not necessarily bad, but I would advise not to leave too much time between sessions and take proper notes, otherwise you might forget what you needed to do, although you do get primary and secondary objective cards, but yeah, your mileage might vary there. In terms of the actual ending of the game, we were actually rather content with how things wrapped up, and often this is not the case. Sometimes the further on in a campaign game you get, the less attention is being paid to how it actually plays, as not everyone will have the stamina to play that far. We did not have that feeling here, though. There was one particular mission which we absolutely loved, where we saw some potential for game-breaking bugs, but at least for us, all worked out smoothly. We later checked, and this specific mission was added as a stretch goal, so you could also play the game not even coming across this mission. The next point is strategy. Well, There are certain things that can have a big effect on how effective you will be able to run your missions. The biggest one for us was knowing what might lie ahead, and there's ways in the game to gather information about that. Every mission starts with landing your spacecraft, and that landing sequence can have massive effects about the likelihood of success of your mission. This does make it quite realistic, but could lead a bit to frustration in case you have absolutely bad dice luck. You could start your 3-hour session knowing that this will be in vain, and you might need to repeat it, and that's time wasted, right? That said, we never failed a single mission. Maybe we played very conservative, or maybe we just knew when to quit. But I would assume that if you constantly repeat the same mission or planet, this could get quite annoying. Did not happen to us. Just a fair warning if you have someone extremely trigger happy in your group. Lastly, the good and ugly about the app. The app itself works quite well, the narration is done well, and it really gets you into the game. There's sound effects and some background music, which you thankfully can deactivate as it gets kind of repetitive over time as well. There were a few hiccups when using the apps, and we felt that having the logbook close by helps, as in you can reread what's going on or went on before, and we had 2 or so occurrences, I'd say, where the app was plainly wrong, but nothing really to write home about. The biggest problem that we encountered is that you can't easily move your progress over to the expansion, which is obviously only an issue if you have an expansion, unless you answer a series of questions or write down some marks about what you did in the main game. The cool thing, though, is that even the expansion can pick up on the choices you made during the base game, so that is pretty neat. So, in conclusion, if you like sci-fi exploration, even if you don't like sci-fi exploration, but you enjoy dice building, deck building, a story arc that is fairly good and has a good amount of, and you actually have a good amount of time to spare, right? You should really give ISS Vanguard a try. There's tons of replayability, variety, and surprise behind every corner of the galaxy, and it's really a lot of fun to explore all of it. Let me know what your favorite memories in ISS Vanguard are, and I'll see you next time again, for sure, on Tabletop Goodness.